Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Please excuse my raspy voice because it's going to be like this the whole show.
I think it's a real cool radio voice. We have a wonderful show this lovely spring day. The winds are going outside. Hopefully we don't get hailed out. That's spring in Texas.
I heard that we're supposed to get pretty hammered hard tonight.
Yes. Anyway, we're going to talk about some green and growies today.
How to make the pool area after the pool's end look really spectacular.
That certainly can be part of it. So when I talk to clients about plants, everybody comes from a different perspective. And one of the things that I run into all the time is some people say, I don't want any because I can't grow anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a green thumb?
I do.
All right. So does that come from being up in Idaho? Did you guys plant a garden and do all that stuff growing up?
No, my mom actually she loved plants. She always had all different kinds of plants. And I've been pretty lucky. I've been able to grow most everything. Now, oddly enough, my wife, she claims she doesn't have a green thumb.
Okay.
But that's not necessarily true. She just didn't know how to take care of them.
Yeah. So I think plants has a lot to do with one of my pet peeves. I'm going to get on a soapbox here. This is one of my pet peeves is Home Depot and Lowe's. I don't think they'll ever be a sponsor. Okay. So of the podcast.
I'm pretty certain they're not going to be.
I'm pretty certain they're not either. But Home Depot and Lowe's, 50% of the plants that they sell in their nursery does not grow here.
That's interesting.
So their philosophy is they buy a lot of stuff that grows in California and Florida, really warm areas, and they offer a year guarantee on the plant. Mm-hmm. And so they feel like there's no problem with selling something that's going to die because they give you a warranty and you get to replace it. But people go in and they buy stuff and then it died. So I really don't know what I'm doing because I don't have a green thumb because this plant died. Now, you could have had the greenest thumb in the world and that plant wasn't going to live because it gets too cold or it gets too hot or it gets too something.
Too much water, not enough water.
Right. So there's certain things that, they're going to look good for a certain period of time and then they're going to die. One thing I would just stress with people is when you start working with plants in your yard, it always helps to go to a nursery where they sell what grows in the particular area. Okay.
Right. So not a national chain.
Where you could go in and you could talk to somebody in there that knows the local plant material. Now, if you have a Home Depot or Lowe's and there's somebody like that there, hey, that's great. But generally, you're not going to find that person in there. You're going to usually find that person in a smaller, I'm not going to say it's got to be a mom and pop type nursery, but somebody that knows the area that they're working in. So I think it's critical that you understand that versus you just go in to the big box store.
You were trained to be a landscape architect.
Correct.
And so for the lay people out there, they're just trying to learn because most people aren't going to learn to be a landscape architect.
Well,
so all of us want to feel like we can get some of the information. So like I have a Western landscaping book, which I've had for 20 years, and I always refer to it because I can go to areas, I can check temperature ranges, and there's just all kinds of good information in there. Do you use something like that or have you?
So that is an excellent book. And if you're in the western part of the United States, that's a phenomenal book. It stops at New Mexico.
And we're talking about a different book because the one I have actually is for here too.
Oh, okay. But then there are certain books, like there's one book that's written for the Metroplex on plants for the Metroplex. For the Metroplex is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So there's another book that's written that's fairly well known for the state of Texas. And I would say in different geographic locations, you're going to find literature along those lines that says what grows where you're at.
And that would be a big deal because if you're down along the coast, that's going to have all different plant species than in what we have in North Texas.
Yeah. So when we were talking to Kate Wiseman last couple of weeks, we talked about, she's in San Diego. They have more plants available there than in almost any place in the United States.
San Diego is spectacular for that reason.
It is spectacular. But when you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody that's saying, hey, this is a great screen, like a lot of people go onto YouTube and they'll go into YouTube to find out recommendations for certain things. And if the person's speaking and they're in Southern California, the plants that they use there are going to be totally different than the plant you use in Nebraska or the plant that you use in Boston or Charlotte, North Carolina. So wherever you're at, there's going to be somebody that's an expert in that area. It helps to get a book on that type of situation. As we speak today, all I can speak about is what's in this particular area versus you go to different areas. And in the United States, there's a map that breaks down zones 1 through 10.
Mhm.
Okay. And 10 are mostly down in the very southern parts of the United States. And 1 is like Alaska, South Dakota. So where they've got some really brutal weather situations, and it'll tell you which plants work in those particular zones. The Western Garden Book, which is the one that we used when we were in college, it goes down like San Francisco might have 9 different zones depending on which side of the hill you're on.
Sure.
Because you have fog and all these different things. There are might in all these different areas. So that helps to understand what you're going to use. But when it comes to plants, I think a great thing is if you go buy something from a nursery that deals with just your local area, then they're going to sell you things that work very well. That's my pet peeve on you can't grow anything. Most everybody can grow things if they understand what to do. And then the biggest thing also that comes into play is there's plants that grow in the area, but some grow in the sun and some grow in the shade. And so you can't mix those two things up.
Some need lots of water, some don't need that much water.
Correct. When I was in Northern California, I was really good doing all this landscaping that did real well in southern and western exposures because it was really hot there in the Sacramento Valley. And then I moved to Texas and I have 84 oak trees and my yard's predominantly shade. And my wife's like, let's plant this. And I'm like, we had that in the other yard. And I'm like, it won't grow here. She's like, well, the climate's very similar. And I'm like, yes, it is, but we're in full shade. That yard was in full sun. So that's another thing you have to be a little bit aware of.
What's interesting to me, we've been to San Diego many times, and it is exactly as you describe. It is stunning. It's beautiful. As Kate said, they have everything on their palette to work with. So you get spoiled going over there. But as everybody knows, I built pools in Phoenix for a long time. And everybody likes to put palm trees around their pools in Phoenix. They're not from that area. They come from somewhere else.
Right.
But we still have a limited palette to work with unless you're in central Phoenix where there's lots of trees and you get some shade. So I was actually pretty excited when I got over here and I saw how green everything is and how much there is to work with, because there's a lot to work with.
Oh, yeah.
But getting away from the palm trees has been a little bit of a challenge because they just look good around the pools. But they're just not going to grow here. Although I have noticed there's some palm trees that do okay. I think that is just it. It's just okay up here. I don't know that I've seen any palm trees in the DFW area that look spectacular.
It freezes here. And palm trees and freezing don't go together.
Like each other.
No. So there are certain palms that will survive that situation. And then there's a lot of things that people do because they want a particular plant. And so they'll come in and like the palms, they'll wrap them to insulate them and to keep them from freezing up. And again, certain species will do much better with that than other species. So it's just, again, like understanding what will grow in certain areas. One of the things that we buy at the nursery every year is a lot of times we'll buy a bougainvillea plant. It's going to die in the winter, but we realize that it's just going to look pretty for several months, then it's going to die. And so if you're fine buying the plant and understanding that and just using it as an accent in a pot for a certain season, then that's fine. I just hate it when people buy it and they plant it and think it's going to live there for the next 20 years, and it's not going to make that.
Well, and I think another point is sometimes some of these plants look absolutely awful in the wintertime and people think they're dead or they should be replaced. And one of the things that's happened with our new place is there's 4 palm trees, sago palm trees out front that are all dead. They're gone. They had to have been planted last year because they're small. But a lot of the stuff that was out front looked really bad just 6 weeks ago. And it's starting to look pretty amazing.
Yeah. So you have what's called a deciduous plant and you have an evergreen plant.
Right.
And so deciduous plants, they just, all the leaves fall off them and there's twigs during the wintertime. And sometimes that happens because that's just what it does every single year. But then it looks spectacular. We're big fans of 2 things, wisteria vines and lilac bushes because they smell really good and they're purple and my wife likes them. They're sticks, both of them in the wintertime. The crepe myrtles that are around here are sticks in the wintertime, but then they flower for a long period of time, all basically May till September. So there's some things that some people are like, well, it's worth having a stick in the time of the year that I'm not that much out in the backyard. I want it to look good for when I start spending time out there, which in the spring, things leaf out and they look good and they flower. And so that's the thing you're going to have to decide is, do I want it to look good all the time and have minimal flowering, or do I want things to be real colorful and I don't mind things looking bad in the winter? So that's a trade-off that you have to look at, because some of the things that flower the best are sticks in the winter.
Sure.
Those type of things.
Mike, I've got a question here,
Yes, sir.
and it's from Dean in Albuquerque. And he wants to know, how come a flush spa doesn't heat the pool?
That's a good question.
Explain to our listeners what a flush spa is, what the premise is.
The flush spa looks like it's level with the swimming pool, except it's not. It's a trick.
It is a trick.
It's a
As
Jedi
I love
trick.
this trick.
It's a pool guy trick instead of a Jedi trick. What happens is when you build that structure, typically you're sitting about an inch above the pool. And so as you look out across the spa, it's in essence a vanishing edge. And so it vanishes into the pool. So it looks like they're the same level, but they're not. So it's typically about an inch higher. So when you're in filtration mode, the water runs over the wall of the spa, between the spa and the pool, and circulates the water and cleans it every day as it does that. So it's taking the water out of the drain in the pool and returning it to a return in the spa. That's how it circulates. When you go to spa mode, the valve turns at the equipment pad. In today's world, long ago in the dark ages, you had to go out to the equipment pad and turn that valve manually. I used to hate to do that because that's what my father-in-law had on his pool. So he didn't want to pay for a computer. So I don't remember the last time I saw that setup, but I'm sure there's some homeowners that do still have that setup, that they have to go out and turn valves. But now today, typically you touch your remote or touch your wireless device, whichever it is, and a valve is turning at the equipment pad automatically. That was the valve turning.
That valve needed some lube.
Yes, it definitely does. So the valve turns, and now instead of taking the water out of the main drain of the pool, it's going to take water out of the main drain of the spa. And it's going to return the water instead of to a return in the spa to the jets. We go 4 of the spa to jet, 4 to the spa jet, 4 to the spa jet. No water goes over the spillway.
Except for maybe bubbling water, and then when you displace it by getting in.
Oh, yes. When me and all my heavy friends jump into the spa and we displace water, yes, there's some that surges over. But so we heat a minuscule amount of the swimming pool when we do that. And then when we get out, yes, there's a void.
Did you happen to see that picture? It's a Ryan Hughes project, and there's a rectangular spa or square spa sitting out in the middle of a pool, and the bubbles are on. There's a lady sitting in it, and it's frothing, but the rest of the pool is totally calm. It's really a great picture.
Yeah, I don't recall that picture.
This optical illusion.
So there's a number of people. The first one I ever saw was done by Lou Akins, and Lou built a spa that was below the surface of the water. And so he had a vanishing edge. When he turned the spa on,
it drew the water down a little bit.
It drew the water down in the pool a little bit. So he basically then exposed the spa so he could heat just the spa. And then when he was done, it filled the pool back up above the spa. I thought that was a really cool trick.
Disappeared.
Yeah. And I've seen several people do that since, the same type of situation. But I saw one recently where the walkway to the spa and the spa appeared when they did that. So they had a walkway that they could go out on, but the rest of the time it was under like an inch of water. It's not under much.
Pull that off. You've got to have a surge tank somewhere that can handle the capacity of the water to draw it down that low.
Yeah. So it's got typically a vanishing edge pool is the setup you're going to have to make that work.
Ideally, that would be a pool with a vanishing edge basin, and it would be a good sized basin.
Yes.
It would have to be a good sized basin.
Because you're pulling at least an inch of water off the whole of the pool, which I think there's another question we'll answer the next episode that somebody sent in about that. I just remembered that question.
Another question?
Yes. So it has to do with gallons and water. We'll get to that next time.
All right. I think we got that one.
Awesome. One thing when I talk to clients is I want to understand to begin with how much they're into plants. So I go through a scale of a 1 to 10 description with them to ask them to give me some input on where they want to be. So usually I talk about this a lot because this has a lot to do with how much decking that I may do in the backyard or how I may lay out the decking to create spaces for plants. So what I tell them is a lot of the style today, people like things really modern.
Mm-hmm.
They want them really clean and neat and tailored.
Straight, consistent.
Yes. And so some of them go to the extent of, in that, I want no plant material. So we're going to pave it all. It's going to be walls. It's going to be paving. It's going to be pool. It's going to be clean, neat, and tailored. Nothing's going to look bad any time of the year because there are no plants. Okay. So to me, that's a 1 on my scale. Okay. As people move up the scale, sometimes people are like, I kind of like that, but that's a little too sterile. And so the next thing I want to consider is maybe I'm going to incorporate some synthetic grass inlays to create some patterns in the decking. So it brings in a little bit of greenery here. And so it's not too sterile.
It softens it up.
It softens it up. And some people are really creative with those patterns that they come in with, which really lend to the architectural styles and accenting of all the features that they're doing. And some people, that's where they'll stop. That's all we're going to do from a greenery standpoint. And some people then also take it a little bit farther and they have full areas of turf, lawn area that's in the synthetic grass. So it looks great all the time, but it's almost like another seating area. To me, I treat synthetic grass like carpet. It's awesome. You can roll it out. It looks good all the time. And what I found with my clients is people lay on it and play on it just like they do the carpet or the floor. They don't do that with pool decks. At least I don't see many clients laying down on their pool deck.
Frolicking on the pool deck?
No, playing around on the pool deck. But in turf lawn areas, I see people doing it all the time. And so this is something, okay, we can bring in some greenery, but there's very little maintenance to this greenery and it looks good 365 days out of the year. And so that's to the extent. So that's maybe like a 2. And then, so what do you think about turf?
I like it. Our place in Phoenix, we did our whole backyard in turf. We got 2 little dogs. That hadn't been a problem. Very easy to maintain. Looks so much better. When you talk to people, typically they love it. I would never have artificial turf. I love regular real grass.
So
that brings up a challenge around a pool.
Yeah. So I'm a real grass fan. I have a degree in landscape architecture. I worked in a nursery. I mowed yards. That was my career as I started as a 12-year-old. So from 12 to 18, that's what I did for a living. And I had actually 3 employees. I like grass. Okay.
I like it too.
But the challenge is I was not a turf fan. And turf kind of crept up on me. So
turf also got a lot better in the last 5 to 10 years.
That's true. So what we first started using turf for was dog runs. Because you get a bunch of big dogs and they run around in the yard and they basically trash everything. And then they're muddy and they're a mess and they bring it inside and it's difficult to clean and stuff like that. And we'd put turf down and people would be like, okay, we've had this turf now for a year. The dog hasn't tracked it up and they come in and they're clean all the time. And this stuff's great. And that's how I started using turf, was like in side yards for dog runs. And then what happened is people started incorporating it a little around the pool. And it was like, this stuff works great. And then more and more people were using it and people really enjoyed the space and everything from, I've got clients that have put turf down and then they put a basketball goal up and they're playing basketball on the turf. You can use it as a large patio area and just put furniture on it. So I had several landscape projects that we were going to incorporate like stepping stones and plants. And instead of doing that, because the areas were so small and it was going to chop them up a lot, that we just turfed the whole area. And it really led to that really clean, tailored look, which a lot of people are into today.
Especially in the modern and contemporary designs. And the other thing too is that when we started separating the concrete to have strips in between them, you're not going to do that in real grass.
Oh, I did have a client do that in real grass.
Did they regret it?
And so they got a special grass that was used on golf greens, and they came in and edged that every week and trimmed that every week. And
that's a commitment.
That was a commitment. Let me step back. First, they did what was called mondo grass. And mondo grass is an ornamental grass that grows up, it's about 2 inches tall. And it was great in those areas. But mondo grass here needed shade in the afternoon. Otherwise, it got too much sun and it couldn't handle it really well. So they started with mondo grass and that didn't look real well. So then they switched to real turf and that didn't work so well for a year or two. And then they actually put synthetic grass in. And I went by and looked at it after they put the synthetic grass in. And I was like, can I retake the photographs on this job? And they're like, sure. And we retook them, and then we actually submitted them and won an international design award. And we had taken pictures before, and it just didn't look really good with the mondo grass and the real grass because it wasn't clean and neat. It was looked like more weedy.
I not only see that challenge. You and I both know that water does the most damage to a pool, whether it's from the outside or the inside. It also can damage and heave decks. It can cause all kinds of structural issues. So if we have anything real, it needs water. So it's getting irrigated regularly. So it's always wet. I see that as the problem.
Well, and then you need drainage too.
Exactly.
Yeah, it becomes a lot of different things. So synthetic grass is one of those things that became bigger and bigger. Now there's even more. Now there's synthetic plants. And we did a project several years ago now. It's about 5-6 years ago. And the lady was like, I want it green. I want it clean. I want it neat. I need you to hide that slide and make it totally disappear. And we originally talked about doing landscaping around it. She's like, okay, that doesn't cut it. So come up with something else. And so we initially were like, there are these synthetic plants. Maybe we could use something like that. And we ordered 5 or 6 different types and had them delivered. And they were, for the most part, hideous looking. And she was like, absolutely not. Definitely no. And then we got this synthetic boxwood and it looked like boxwood.
It looks pretty good.
It looks very good.
That's good to know.
And so we put that up on the wall and she's like, that's perfect. And we had a client that came over about 3 weeks later and they were dealing with the same situation. He hates plants. And they were like, they walked up to this wall and she said, how long ago was this planted? And we were like, this was just installed a couple weeks ago. And she literally reached up and touched it. And she's touching it, still not realizing it's synthetic. And then I was like, synthetic boxwood. And she's like, that's amazing. I mean, it looks like a clipped hedge. There are a lot of ornamental synthetic plants now, other than just turf and boxwood. Now you can get different looks with ferns and all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that's really cool that people are doing is what's called a green wall. Now, if you do a green wall out of plants, we're talking high maintenance issue because you got to keep this whole wall irrigated and
the orientation,
and all these different things. They have synthetic plants that you can do with this as well and very low maintenance and looks good all the time. So some people, that's their degree. Oh, I'm going to go back to the guy that hated plants. So he saw this, our synthetic boxwood. So he turfed his whole backyard. We're talking thousands of square feet of turf. And then I had left these landscape areas along the edge of the house so we could hide all the valves and all the J boxes and electric controllers and all these things. And he took the turf right up to him. And I'm like, whoa, you can't do this. This is hideous. There's no way we can hide all this stuff. And he's like, oh, I've got a plan for that. And he literally hired someone to come in and do metal frame that went up 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide. He built these things and then he had them covered in the synthetic boxwood. And so it looks like a clipped hedge all the way around the perimeter of his house and it hid all the stuff behind it. So anyway.
What's interesting is humans love the water. We like the water, but there's something about seeing green. I think it just makes people feel good.
Well, a space is totally different. I have some people that are like, we have a relationship with plants of a 1, but we want a beautiful backyard. My comment to them is we're going to have to do some things more than just a 1 on the plant material, because generally you're not going to get a beautiful backyard if you don't have some greenery involved.
Right.
That's why we talked about biophyletic design. And when we were talking about that's bringing greenery into the house. Okay. So by all means, if we want a beautiful setting outside, we got to keep some greenery out there.
Sure.
Okay. So we've got a 1 and pave it all. We got a 2. We're going to bring in some synthetic plants. So a 3 is I want pots. Okay. I want to come in and put some pots in a space so I can have some plant material, but I don't want to get carried away with a lot of plants. So are you a fan of pots?
I like them if they're used the correct way, the right way. I don't like a million of them.
Okay.
I might like a little bit of consistency to them. And there's certainly some colors I like, but I don't necessarily have an opinion one way or the other.
So do you design pots in your designs?
Yeah.
Okay. So the nice thing is if you design pots in your design, then you can actually do the things that I think are critical here. Because to me, pots are the worst thing in the world, unless you like dead plants.
Well, and really what we're trying to do is tee people up because we don't do landscaping.
We set people up for landscape. Yes. So with pots, if you can put water to them and you can put drainage to them, then the success rate of that plant material is skyrocket. Because if you're counting on someone to go water those plants, especially here, North Texas, where we're at, that plant's going to die. Okay. Because most people don't have time to go water their plants every day. And that's what it's going to take when it's 108 degrees outside. But if I've got a drip tube that goes to it and waters it every day with a drip tube, and then I've got a drain at the bottom of it that drains any excess water out, then that pot's going to have a fairly high success rate.
And they're clean looking.
Yeah. So they're clean, they're neat. I can bring in a pop of color with a pot. Also, there's a lot of different heights that I can bring in, bring attention in. They're a very nice architectural feature, especially if there's a rhythm to them in the design. I'm a fan of pots if they're used properly. Now, like you said, I don't want to have 45 different pots of all different sizes and shapes and everything around.
Been to places like that and it almost creates anxiety for me. There's just too much.
I've seen some places that are done nicely in that way, but most of the time, yes, I would say I'm in the same boat as you. That it's going to create a little bit of anxiety with the overall situation. So to me, pots then make it like a 3 on the landscaping scale.
I like how you're explaining this.
It helps me get people where they want to be. So some people are like, okay, I'm all about 1 and 2 and 3. I'm good there. And then the next thing that some people are like, the foundation of my house is ugly. So if we take paving right up to the foundation of the house, that's going to look bad because it's just not finished off real well.
Your eye is going to be drawn to it.
Yeah. And so we've got everything that's beautifully finished. And as you go 12 inches up, then the masonry in the house or the stucco starts, but that 12 inches looks horrible. And so I need something there to tone that down. So I'd like to have some plants up against the foundation of my house. Now, this doesn't have to be a big planting area. You might come in with something that's 2 or 3 feet wide. It's enough that you can put a plant there
that hide the foundation, right?
It can basically hide the foundation. Now, here's where another one of my pet peeves comes into is understand the size of the plant that's being planted. There's 2 veins of thought here. So there's people that they want their planting done when they first move into their home and they want it to look good. And so they're like, I need a lot more plant material than that's suggested after the plants were planted. Now, plants are the only thing that changes over a period of time. A pool doesn't change its shape over a period of time.
Right.
Okay. Your cabana doesn't change its shape over a period of time. The water feature stays the same. It doesn't grow. None of these things change. Plants change. Okay. So when they first initially go in, they could be small. They might be a couple inches tall, but that same plant that's a couple inches tall may grow to be 20 feet tall. Okay. So you have to understand what you're putting in the ground, because sometimes people go to a nursery and they pick stuff up and they're like, this is pretty, let's plant it. And you can go to neighborhoods later on and you're like, okay, that plant was planted 20 years ago and it was the wrong plant and it's a monster and it's covering the windows and halfway across the front door. They're fighting it every year and cutting it back to try to make it stay where it's supposed to, because it was never supposed to be that size in the first place. So if you put something up against the foundation of the house, you want things that maybe grow 2-3 feet tall, because you don't want to cover your windows up.
Right.
You want them to accent the architecture of your home, not obliterate the accent of your home. There's neighborhoods you go by and you're like, there's a house behind all that stuff. I can't see it, but there is a house. See, there's a sidewalk that goes up there, but it's just this big green overgrown monster. You want to put the right thing in the right space. So that's important to understand. Usually when you buy a plant, there's a little chart on there that says how big it's supposed to go. But again, if you work with a nursery and they know their plants, you might just say, hey, I need some stuff here on my front of my house and I need them to be about this tall, and they can tell you what that would be if you want to do it yourself.
So I did quite a bit of landscaping in Phoenix, and the conversation I would have with people would be, because there's people that want instant gratification.
Right.
And there's people that can wait. But the instant gratification people oftentimes are going to lose at least half those plants because there's just too many.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You have to remove them.
Yes.
There's way too many later on. Within usually 3 years. So what happens is your perennials will get full size within a year. Most of your shrubs will get full size within 3 years. Trees sometimes are going to take 15, 20, 25 years before they're a full size.
Right.
Okay. So there are people that, I was at a job site the other day and they had planted 2 live oaks in the front of this house and they look like they're 15-year-old live oaks. And those 2 trees probably fit on 1 semi. Okay. So
they were probably very expensive.
They were very expensive specimens. Some people want that effect immediately and their budget can afford that. But even that, those trees were spaced out to allow for growth and things like that. So understand what's going to grow in the space. So we're going to deal with the foundation of the house. So that's the next thing that some people look at, but you want to be careful about windows and doors and things not getting too big. The other thing that's really nice when you're designing something is you want to maybe change the emphasis as you go towards the main entry or the main areas that you go by all the time, like the back door, by the front door. Those are places that you might change plants out even seasonally, maybe in a pot that right now you're going to put something that looks great in the spring and the summer, and then you're going to switch it out and you're going to have something that looks really good in maybe the fall. And then maybe you have something that looks good in the winter time. And then maybe you're going to get some bulbs that come up in the spring, and those can all be in one space and they just change seasonally. So they look great all the time, but you're not going to do that to your whole property.
No.
You're going to do it where you're going to see it every single day and appreciate it every single day. So that's usually, a lot of times I capture that in pot areas.
Have you used any of the metal plants? They're decorative metal plants. They obviously don't look like real plants. They're more ornamental.
So I've seen some metal plants, and a lot of these are really sculptured plants, and most of them have a southwestern flair to them. They're more the agaves and the yuccas and that type of thing. And yes, I have seen those, and some people, again, if it fits the style of the garden that you're trying to do and you can't grow those things in your particular area, or there's some people that just like interesting, unique pieces of art and they view that as an art piece too.
I'm going to replace those 4 sagos with metal plants.
Yeah.
Metal agaves, actually.
Those will look
I saw some that look pretty good.
They'll look good all the time.
There'll be lots of green around them. I think you can, to your point earlier, is stage things where you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but you can put it all together so you don't really notice it. It just looks good.
So years ago, I worked at a landscape company and they had a display garden at the sales office. And they had a garden tour in that display garden once a year that people got invited to.
Mhm.
And as a joke, they put this one azalea in that was a silk plant and they labeled it Azalea silcus. It was funny because the garden tour was not during azalea blooming season, but
Mhm.
people would come in and they'd be like, "Oh, that's beautiful." And they wouldn't realize it was silk. Then they would be writing down the name.
How did you get it to grow?
Then they were like, "Wow, that looks really good." And a lot of people, when they read the name, got the joke. But then there were some people that didn't, that actually, I heard that they went to the nursery and they were asking for this particular Latin name, Silcus of azalea. So anyway, your plants,
I've seen even palm trees, tall, 15, 20-foot trees made out of metal.
there are synthetic palm trees as well, metal ones as well, that you can get decorative things and features that create a setting.
I'm thinking a 20-foot metal palm tree would be a great lightning rod.
Probably so. Yeah. Didn't think about that. Accents are what you're talking about, is certain plants are done to create a focal point or an accent. So like in your entry, that would be nice. And you want to have certain plants that accents to maybe a particular view or as a focal point as you're going in. So that's the next thing that some people will incorporate are focal points. Okay. So I've got my foundation covered up. I've got some pots. I maybe have some synthetic grass. I want some key things that I could put in, or maybe at the end of a view, or it's something that I'm going to walk by as I walk in. Palm trees are very well known as an accent plant.
Mm.
Okay. Another one that's really well known with a completely different style is a Japanese maple, because they have these twisted limbs and the leaves and the fall color and that type of thing. And so there are certain trees that have architectural interest to them that might be an accent plant. Different areas, people are going to put something in. Maybe it's something that flowers a certain time of the year and you're really into a particular color, or it has a scent or something like that. So some people are going to look at those key plants and they're going to want to put those in key places as well. One thing just to supplement that is when you have an accent plant, you want to look at it all the time. And so one of the things that's really nice is to incorporate lighting to highlight that accent plant at night.
No doubt.
Yeah, Kurt Bianchi talked about how they did lighting, and sometimes the lighting was coming from the sideways so you could see the texture of the bark. Sometimes the lighting's coming from up above, so it just gives a moonlit feeling on a space. And the lighting's always best if you can do it where you don't see where the fixtures are coming from. Sometimes that's not possible either. There are different architectural pieces that can be used for lighting. So you've got your focal points that you may want to incorporate, and then you may want to accent those with lighting to help play up, because you're going to look at it 360 days out of the year. A lot of people look at it a lot more at night than they do during the daytime.
Yeah, I've had pools for 30 years. I know we used ours at night more often than during the day for sure.
Right. After we've got some accent plants in, so that's kind of a 5. We want to get some accent plants. And then some people are like, privacy is a big deal to me. And I need to do that with plant material because my homeowners association won't allow me to do it with a fence or a structure. So I got to do it with plants.
So a yard with wrought iron fencing around it that you can mask against the wrought iron fence to create some privacy is what you're saying.
You could certainly do that. There's also the second story window across the way that's a really problem. We can mask that with plant material. We may have just the windows of the neighbor that's behind that are looking into the yard that we want to mask. So privacy, it's important to understand where you're trying to create the view from and create that privacy. And again, I mentioned a lot of people will do that with structure.
Mhm.
They may build a cabana, they may build a taller fence, they may do other things structurally, but some places you can't put that structure in. It's not
Right.
allowed, or it can't be in that proximity, or it can't be that height. And so the plant material is the only way to solve that. So that's where coming in with certain trees that grow fairly narrow but tall are really beneficial. The most well-known ones in Italian cypress. Those are I call them the popsicle trees. They look like the rocket popsicle. They're tall and skinny, and you line up 8 or 10 of them, and they can block a lot of different things. And in different parts of the country, different things like in California, I know they use podocarpus a lot. I know in Texas, we use hollies a lot. So there's different plants that you use, and you want them to grow tall and narrow because you may need something that grows 15 feet tall, and you don't have 15 feet of your yard to give up. Okay. And so the challenge is sometimes people put the plant in that grows 15 feet wide, and then they try to keep it 3 feet wide. And that's what's called high maintenance.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's where people are like, I hate plants because I have to do all this work with them. That's because you got the wrong plant in there.
Mhm.
Okay. You want something that's going to go fairly narrow and upright if you need to screen that second floor window. Or maybe you talk your neighbor into planting something as well. I had one project that they didn't have enough room, and they volunteered to pay for the plant material
On the other side of the
on
fence.
the other side of the fence so the neighbor could provide the privacy for them because they wanted the privacy too. And so I thought that was a real creative solution.
Win-win for everybody.
And yes, so sometimes you don't have the space. And so you want to incorporate. That's where also I talk about you may want to borrow landscaping. The neighbor may have already put things in. You don't have to duplicate that. You just have to fill in the blanks.
Sure.
Well, now you can have a screen, but they may have provided some of it already. And so now you can use their landscaping and your landscaping together. And they may have provided all the trees, and you just need to put something low in front of the fence so you get a layered effect with the landscaping as well.
Create some interest.
Yeah. So you've got privacy now. We got focal points. We got screen the foundation. We've got your turf. You got your grass accents. And then from there, some people like pockets of plants around. This is people that are really usually into a lot of plant material. They like variety. They like to see colors. They like the scents. They like garden. And so they want pockets of plants around them as well. So those may be incorporated. Like I have a lot of clients that are like, I don't need a walkway on all 4 sides of the pool. I've got a small piece of property. We're going to push the pool towards the back, but we have to be 8 feet off the property line because of building code. And so instead of putting a walkway back there, we're just going to put plants all back there. So now it can provide us some privacy, give us some visual interest. It's low maintenance. We got some color through the seasons. And so that's where people will sometimes come in and put a whole pocket of plants on the back side of the pool. You do a lot of pools that have walkways on all 4 sides, or do you do some that?
It's funny that you just say that because I was just sitting here thinking as you were talking that I like it when the backside of the pool doesn't have any deck on it. It's not always necessary for the pool to have deck all the way around it.
No.
It looks good to have landscaping right up next to it, but you have to be mindful of what it is that you're putting down, as well as the water and the drainage like we were talking earlier.
Right. I had a project that somebody was showing me the other day, and they were trying to work around some existing plants, okay, so that's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. When I first start with a client, I'm going to walk in and I'm like, what is sacred? What needs to stay here in this backyard?
We talked about that on the previous episode, and I thought it was really smart.
Yeah.
I haven't asked somebody that, whether or not they had a pet buried or if there was something very special to them or sacred to them. It's really a good point. People should be asking it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just, oh, I like that plant.
Yeah.
I want to keep that. Can you incorporate it? So to me, I walked into my backyard and I had 84 oak trees. My wife's like, you really counted how many trees are on this? Yes. To me, they were all sacred because I grew up in West Texas and we're basically in Lubbock. There were very few trees. So I really appreciated having trees around so I could enjoy them. So to me, they were all sacred, but I had to have some sacrificial lambs there because the pool and the patio wouldn't fit. So we designed a lot around the particular plants that were going in. So if you have sacred things, you want to locate them, and then you want to have them on the drawing so you can see where they're at. So this particular project I was talking about is they decided they wanted to keep some magnolias that were on the property line. Magnolias to me are a big problem because the magnolia has a big leaf about the size of the palm of my hand and fingers, and it's really stiff leaf. Okay. And I don't know any pool cleaner or skimmer that will pick up a magnolia leaf. And magnolias drop leaves every single day. They're an evergreen. They stay green all year long, but they shed those leaves every single day. So they're constantly dropping. So to me, a magnolia is one of the worst things in the world you could have by a swimming pool.
Next to the pool, right?
Yeah. Because it's going to create a lot of maintenance. And then that's hard to clean up. Now, some people, crepe myrtles are the same thing. They're like those little flowers that are like crepe paper. Okay. They flutter all over the place and they flower all the way from May till September, and they're in the pool and they make the pool look dirty all the time. I agree with that. They do. But if you have a good cleaning system, that can really help save that. Plus, they are pretty. They bloom all the time versus something that's just green. So everybody's different on what they like. So it helps to understand that. But going back to, it helps to understand what people want to keep and what can go when you're working on a project, whether it's just a cabana or you're working on a pool or everything in the backyard. But some people have definite opinions about some things that are sacred. And then some people want a jungle. So they just want to feel like they've walked in to the jungle in Central America or Hawaii or somewhere like that. And they just want to have San Diego in their backyard.
So typically, your jungle style landscaping pool is going to be around a more organic style pool, I would imagine.
It can be. That's the natural trend. Although I do have some people that what I call modern organic is the description that I use for it. And it is a rectangular pool, but in a very lush setting.
Sure.
So that they want plants all over the place. And again, it just depends on what the client's looking for. So the jungle's a 10. Okay. So I have these that are coming all the way through. And what my big question with people is, where are you? Where do you want to be?
Right.
So do you want the privacy and some accents? And most people are, like you said, they're fans of pots or they hate pots. So they're like, nope, don't want that at all. Or yes, I love it. And so you can get a feel for where they want to be. Now, certain styles of projects lend themselves to less plants or more plants or particular focal points or structured, those type of things. And so you can then, incorporate those things. And what's really cool is the 3D modeling that we do. We can get fairly accurate in that appearance. So you're really good at that, creating the setting and the plants and all those things to make it look like how it's going to look.
I have one in Westlake I'm working on right now that they want a lot of plant material.
Yeah.
They need privacy anyway.
So do you have a lot of people later on that are like, yeah, I want this image that you created here. Just can you hand this off to the landscape contractor and have them duplicate this?
I don't have a problem doing that. Half the reason we put the landscaping in is because we took all of the landscaping out and only produced a plan of the pool project. It just doesn't look as good. It doesn't look finished.
It's not finished. And so
this is an idea of what this could look like, but I don't have a problem handing it off to the landscape.
Yeah. So I've got several people that I work with in conjunction with that. So one thing that when I talked about the degree of plants that didn't come in, that's really important is sometimes landscaping can solve certain problems. Okay. So the first thing is here, the sun. Okay. It's hot in the middle of the summer. And so trees can provide shade. So I tell people all the time, you want a tree on the southwest corner of your house because you want the shade in the middle of the afternoon to tone things down. So when it's the hottest, the insulation in houses has come a long way. A tree can do a lot of help for you.
It will cast a shadow.
It will cast a shadow. So shade's something that's real important. And again, sometimes that can't be created by a structure, but it can be created by plant material.
What's your favorite big shade tree?
I really like a red oak. Now, here in North Texas, there are post oaks everywhere. And my wife calls those the scrubby trees because they grow, and a lot of times in a thicket type setting. And so they don't get to spread their branches out and everything like that. But a planted red oak isn't a native tree. It's planted and it turns red in the fall. It's very pretty. It's a very large shade tree. It's got a nice root system to it. That's one of my favorites. I like my trees to drop their leaves in the wintertime, as much as my wife hates all the leaves that show up. But I like that because I want the sun to come in the wintertime.
Yes.
I want the light. I want the heat that comes in, and I want the shade in the summer. So I like the seasonal aspects of it. So that's why I'm not a big fan of live oaks, because live oaks keep their leaves all the way till spring, and people are like, they're evergreen. If you're around a live oak about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were dropping their leaves like crazy, and they're putting their new ones on. And so it never looks like they're without a leaf, but you look at the ground, there's a lot of stuff on the ground.
Almost like a snake shedding its skin.
Yes, very much like that.
Mm.
So, and there's some really cool trees in certain parts of the country that look really good that don't grow except in certain parts of the country. It just depends what you want. But then I like flowering trees too that are smaller tree. It's not a shade tree. It's more of a screening tree that provides something. And I like red buds, and I like crepe myrtles, and I like ornamental pears. And those are nice trees that give me some spring color, that type of thing.
And they can be groomed to look really nice.
Oh, yeah. So the biggest thing about crepe myrtles, there's what's called a crepe murder, and that's where they chop all the branches off to like stubs, and then they sprout out new ones. And I'm not a fan of murdering crepe myrtles at all. Here in North Texas, that's a thing. From what I understand, it may be just a North Texas thing that some of the landscape guys do. They don't prune. I'm a big advocate of pruning to create the shape of a tree, especially the first 3 or 4 years, and then the tree will respond and grow to how you want it to. So anyway, it's a side note. Do you have a favorite tree?
I really don't. And I'll just be forthright about it, is I'm still trying to wrap my head around the plant species here in a way that I'm confident that it's the right stuff.
Right.
I can get close, and I certainly will spend my time doing the research. You've been here for 20 some odd years, been here for a year and a half. I'm still learning the ropes.
Oh, yeah. It's a process.
It's the same in the sense that there's just certain things that will grow and that won't grow. There's things that can damage structures and things that won't, and there's placement issues, and all that stuff that is very good.
So I have some people that are like, well, I have a small yard and I want to maximize things in my small yard, so I don't want to waste the space on plant material. And to me, I think that you're not wasting space by putting plant material in, because if you put plants in some key areas, you don't have to line everything with plants everywhere. But if you put some key ones in, it can help the space look a lot better than just wall-to-wall concrete and everything like that. As I said, there's a lot of trees that will grow up and provide you a canopy, so it gives you some shade and protection from overhead. The other thing, a lot of people like the sense of a scale of a space by having something overhead versus being totally open.
That's interesting, because I refer to that as creating more of an intimate space. So whether it's a pergola or a mata, whatever somebody wants to call it, or a shade tree up above you, or just about anything ornamental that creates some safety from the sun, totally creates like this special space.
Oh, 100%. And some people like to be in the open, but most people, given a sense of when they go into a space, if there's a sense of a ceiling or something, it gives them a feeling of more protection, in that sense of enclosure. And then there's the people that grew up in West Texas that just want to look up and see the stars all the time because they didn't have any trees around. But that's like Phoenix too, right?
Yeah, a lot like Phoenix.
The critical thing about plants, just as a side note, is in some parts of the country, irrigation is critical. So, when I lived in New Jersey as a kid, we didn't have a sprinkler system. It rained, and it rained seasonally and all the time. So we didn't have a sprinkler system versus I moved to Lubbock and everybody's got a sprinkler system. That's because in Lubbock, it doesn't rain for long periods of time,
Sure.
certain times of the year. And when I moved to Northern California, everybody had a sprinkler system there too. And they even had drip systems so they could put water in a more efficient way into the right location instead of just spraying water all over the place. But you want to have some form of irrigation to supplement your plants so they perform better. But the ideal situation is if you could have someone that sets the plant material up by zones. Again, you're going to have a sun zone and a shade zone, and it would be better to have your watering set up that way as well versus just everything's on, whether it's the sun or the shade is all on the same, because you're going to overwater some things and underwater others. But again, that's a specialist that you're going to work with to come up with that type of situation.
What you're saying is that these different types of plants should be on different zones.
Correct. So you want to set the sprinklers up to do that as well.
And I would suggest that's probably part of the problem with the plants dying is there's too many projects out there. They've got everything on the same lines. They're all getting the same amount of water.
And so in an ideal situation, you water your lawn a certain amount during the week, but then you water your plants less. But if you're watering the same amount for everything, because it's all on one zone, it's watering the plants and the yard and everything, that's not as an efficient system.
And some plants are water hogs.
Yes. So, and some plants are water hogs. That's 100% true. When I studied in college, they were beginning the very beginnings of drought tolerant, what was called xeriscape. And that was using the right plant with the right amount of water, with the right amount of mulch. So you could be efficient in the use of the water to perform the best situation. That's become much more of a environmentally sound practice, especially in certain parts of the country where water is more and more on a high demand type situation. So that's my guide that I go through with people on how do you want to develop this space. And then once I understand what they want to do, then basically what I want to do is provide this proper amount of space in the overall design concept so they can create the effect that they're looking for. And then some people will also go into all the details about the selection of those materials, but then you may collaborate with somebody to work with you on the landscaping, maybe collaborate with someone on the irrigation and then collaborate with somebody else on the lighting. Although usually the lighting and the sprinkler irrigation company are a lot of times the same. But then you can create a team of people to help create the space for what's going to be best for the client.
Those are great questions. I like how you have gone from 1 to 10 so people can look at all those. Well, I'm a 3, I'm a 5, I'm a 6. No, I want a jungle. No, I want it clean.
And then you can provide them with that versus you assume everybody's the same, you're going to get in trouble some of the time.
Very true.
Yeah, which is what I learned very early in my career. And that's the fun of, as a designer and creating unique spaces, this is part of the uniqueness of each individual space is they're going to want different things. But the person that doesn't want anything and they want a beautiful backyard, those two things are probably, something's going to have to move there. Now, if I want no plants and I want the most efficient backyard, the word beautiful is not used, then that's a totally different thing. Anyway, it's all about creating the right environment for the client.
For them, what they want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Mike, one of the things I use, because I'm getting more and more familiar with the plant material here, is an app that I use on my phone, which I love, because every time I see a plant here, I just go up to it, my phone takes a picture of it, and it tells me everything about that plant.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's called Picture This.
Picture This?
And it's an app you can get on your iPhone.
I would have killed to have that in college because I had to take 2 semesters, herbaceous plants, fall semester, woody plants, spring semester. And that basically taught us a little bit about what to do. So it was so inadequate that I went to work for a nursery. I felt critical for me because I wanted to do residential design. So Picture This.
Mm-hmm.
And you just take a picture of it.
That's all you have to do is just get a picture of it, scans it, it tells you everything about it.
Does it tell you if it needs sun or shade and how big it gets and where it grows and where it doesn't? So is it just for Texas plants?
No, it's for anywhere on the planet.
Anywhere on the planet?
Yes.
Oh, That would even work in San Diego then, huh?
Yes, because that's on the planet.
Oh.
Of course, your library might be really huge.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you take a picture, and then you have a library of all the plants you've taken pictures of?
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and then unlike you, I don't know all of the technical Greek names for everything,
Yeah.
nor can I pronounce half of them. I would just soon tell me what it is.
Funny thing about that. So all plants have two names.
Yes.
There's a Greek name
A common name.
and a common name.
When we were talking to Kate, she said she had memorized like 3,000.
Yeah, she had to memorize all the Greek. So what's funny is in California, everybody calls all the plant by the Greek name. They don't use any common names at all.
Oh,
And out there, it was really critical that you knew the Greek names. In Lubbock, growing up there, nobody used the Greek names.
Sure.
Everybody used the common name. So for the most part, around here, most people use the common name. But when you go to order a plant, you want to know the Greek name. And then the other thing is there's so many hybrids now of plants that have certain characteristics. Salvia, there's a particular salvia that I like that's blooming starting right now. It's called May's Night, which was a particular hybrid that's done. And so it has particular height and flower and bloom season. Daylilies at my house, I like a particular variety called Del Oro.
Mm-hmm.
They're yellow, they're small, they rebloom. Okay, versus if you just go buy a daylily at Home Depot, it probably blooms once and there's no telling how tall it gets. So when you get into hybrids, you have very specific things that have certain characteristics, because you might plant a rose that grows 2 feet tall, while another one grows 4 feet tall, another one grows 6 feet tall. So you want to know what hybrid that you're going to get and what variety, so you know exactly how tall.
Well, yeah, and certainly since you were in college, there's more plants, there's more hybrids, there's more different variations of stuff.
Certainly. So every year there's the plants of the year that come out that are the new ones and all that kind of stuff. That's always fun to see what varieties come out. And there's certain things that it maybe only comes out initially and it's blue, and then they make a hybrid. Now they have white and blue and pink. And that's the fun of if you get really into gardening.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that have just white gardens that are all white flowers.
I love gardens.
So anyway, it's a lot of fun to see things grow. And the fun thing too is, as I mentioned earlier, this is the one thing that develops over time.
Mm-hmm.
And, it does take a little bit of time for you to get the real feel. And that's when I'm always the impatient guy. I want to go out and photograph my job right away after it's done and the landscaping's done. But like we did one last May that we photographed, and it was just landscaped. We went back and photographed the same job in November, and the job looked totally different because all those perennials were now full size versus they were little bitty things when they were planted in May. The shrubs had already grown quite significantly. And so the space had a lot of different feel to it than when you first went out and did it. It does take a while, but it really creates a different impact. That one other thing I'll just add to this, if you're going to phase things over a period of time, get your trees in the ground first.
Get out of my head.
Get out of your head?
Yes. I was just thinking the same thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I was also going to, one of the things we didn't talk about are some of the ornamental and decorative grasses.
Oh, yeah. I love them.
I do too. And there's a lot of different variations. You can get really creative with those.
Yeah. When I was in college, the first fountain grass came out, which was, and now there's all kinds of varieties of just even fountain grass, but that was a big deal in the plant world back in the early 80s. That was the first ornamental grass that was used by a landscape architect, was a big fan of mine, in Ohm von Sweden. They were out of DC, and they were the first ones to mass plant fountain grass. And you can drive through almost any town now and you can see ornamental grasses used in mass plantings and that type of thing. And it gives seasonal interest and appeal. Some look really great in the fall and the winter. But yes, ornamental grasses are near the top of my list.
I like them.
I like them. They're tough, though, when you have 84 oak trees and a lot of shade.
Yeah.
So there's very few ornamental grasses that grow in the shade, but there are some. Yes, I'll have to check your app out. And if there's other tools that you are familiar with that we didn't mention today, You might make some comments on our Instagram account, share those with other people. So we appreciate the help that others can bring, and also other questions that somebody might have that we can add to the knowledge of what we can help everybody with in this process. Again, that's available on our website and also on our Instagram account as well.
Awesome. Good information today.
Yes. The last tip I will offer is green goes up, brown goes down.
Yes. So great episode. Hopefully I'll have a voice next week.
Yeah, I think you did great. So thanks for hanging in here with me.
All right. Everybody have a great week.
Take care.